Hello. Hello, good afternoon to everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this ICGEB, Butantan and USP workshop for the first time here in Brazil. And my name is Rodrigo Calado. I'm from the University of São Paulo, Ribeirão Preto Medical School. And I'm very happy to start this meeting. And before we do that, I have the opening ceremony. I have some housekeeping information to you. So please note that we are equipped with 4 exits in this room, some emergency exits. Restrooms also are available at the back of this room if you need them. And we recommend to use masks, although they're not mandatory. And they are available at the entrance, as probably you noticed that. We'll have a coffee break today and every day. So it's also at the back of this room. And since the room is a little bit tiny, you are welcome to grab your coffee and the food and come back to this room as well. So you don't need to stay there. You can bring food to the auditorium. As of tomorrow, lunch will be served at the tents. We have a tent upstairs, and the reception also will take place upstairs this evening after the keynote lectures. So the way to go there is you go the same way as you got here from the entrance, and then you go up the stairs and make a left, and at the main entrance of the Butantan Institute, there is a entrance to the left, and there is a sign there saying entrance to the reception room. So there's this white tent that probably you saw from the room, and that's where lunch will be every day, and our reception will be tonight. And please wear your badges at all times here, including when you go to the reception or lunch upstairs. So having said that, I'd like to ask Professor Raul Machado to coordinate the opening ceremony. So, Professor Machado.
Hello. Thank you, everybody. For this opening section, I would like to ask you to take a seat.
Yeah.
The main institutional representative responsible for this event. I would like to call as our hosting this event, Professor Dimas, please. Take a seat here. You going to try it? Very good. Professor Carmino Antônio de Souza. He is our Secretary of Science, Research, and Development in Health. Next to him, please. Professor Marco Antônio Zago, President of the State Research Foundation. Professor Paulo Alberto Nuzenzain, representing University of São Paulo, on behalf of Professor Carlotti, the President of the University of São Paulo. Please. Professor, please, Dr. Lawrence Banks. Director General of the ICGEB, International Center for Genetics. Professor Marcelo Morales, ICGEB Board Member for Brazil and Secretary of State of Research and Development Policies and Programs. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Take a seat. And please, we start with Professor Dimas. Say a couple words. I'll leave Dr. Lawrence for the last one, okay?
Thank you, Professor. Is it working?
Yes.
Yes. It's a pleasure for us here at Butantan to co-host this important meeting it's paramount for us. And I wish we can continue to cooperate with you in future initiatives like that. And I also want to thank Professor Raul, Professor Rodrigo, Professora Sandra, Professora Carol, and all the members of the organizing committee. The job you are doing is excellent. It's very, very important for us. So thank you, and be welcome. It's a great honor for us to receive you here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Continuing the presentation, I'd like to register here the presence of CDC people, PAHO, Rockefeller University, INTA from Argentina, Fiocruz, Al-Azhar University, Mount Sinai Medical School, and also we have here, Dr. Lawrence, people from 12 different countries, of ICGEB, from Italy, India, Iraq, Egypt, Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Nigeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, Ecuador, Peru, and South Korea. Okay? This is very good for us to have, very pleased to have all these people. The story of this event started in December 2018, when Professor Zago, Professor Vahan Goptian, President of the University of São Paulo at that time, and Professor Dimas and I, as President of the University of São Paulo International Agency, visit headquarters of ICGEB in Trieste and expressed our desire to strengthen our relationship. Their device was to begin our collaboration by hosting ICGEB event. Dr. Lawrence Banks and Mariana Maculan from ICGEB were the key people encouraging and supporting this initiative at that time. Back to São Paulo, two coordinators were designated by Butantan, Professor Sandra Cocuso, with Professor Maria Carolina Sabaga, and by USP, Professor Rodrigo Calado. And these dedicated people in 2019 set a format of this event and built a proposal for ICGEB. And we were chosen. The proposal was chosen. And then we have the workshop Emerging Infectious Disease by Biology, Prevention, and Treatment. At this point, Deborah Moretti joined this effort as a manager of the International Relations Office, guided this ship, and was a key person to make this event possible. After USP and Butantan discussed the topics back and forth with Dr. Banks, we established a program and a date that was postponed twice due to the pandemic. And today, here we are, making this event originally planned for 2019 a reality. Institutionally, I would like to express our most deep gratitude towards Professor Zago, Fapesp, Professor Carlotti, here represented by Dr. Paulo, and University of São Paulo, and Instituto Butantan, Dr. Dimas, Professor Dimas, that for their sensibility and commitment in fulfilling that was decided in 2018. Okay. Additional thanks to International Relations team, the scientific committee, it was very helpful, all the support from executive board, all the support from secretaries of executive board, the communication team, also very important. And we have to also to thank the support for the sponsors, GlaxoSmithKline, that's JSK, Thermo Fisher Scientific, Ozanga Healthcare, and Locus. Wishing a special and productive event. Thank you all for attending. Thank you. Please, Professor Carmen.
And good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for the kind invitation to stay here. On behalf of David Wippe, our secretary, I would like to thank Dimas, our colleague, President of Butantan Institute, Dr. Lawrence Banks, Director General of ICG, Professor Zago, our President of Fapesp, and Professor Paulo from the University of São Paulo. And firstly, I would like to thank everyone for staying here and the kind invitation to participate of this opening section. Thank you very much.
Professor Zago. Professor Zago, would you like to have the picture projected?
Yes, I send it especially.
Yes, a special picture.
Okay, please do it. Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, good afternoon, my friends, and Dr. Lawrence Banks, welcome. I say it's a great pleasure to have you here, and I wish also to greet the representative of the director of the University of São Paulo, Paulo Nussensweig, Vice President for Research of the University, and the State Secretary of Science and Technology in Health, Dr. Carmino de Souza, Marcelo Morales, representing the Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovation, and the Director of Butantan, Dr. Dimas Covas. I asked to show this picture because this was taken in Trieste in 2018 during our visit to the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. It was a high-level mission of the state of São Paulo. As you see, it included the former rector of the University of São Paulo, Vahan Agopian, and the director of Butantan, Dimas Covas, and myself. At the time, I was president of Fapesp, which I still am, but also I was the state secretary for health of the state of São Paulo. You can see also our good friend, Raul Machado, who together with Rodrigo Calado are the main responsible for organizing this meeting, so we should thank them both. You can see also from the ICGEB the former director, Mauro Giacca, and Dr. Banks, who at the time was the vice president and now is the general director. At that meeting, we started the talks about a more permanent and strong partnership between the Institute and the research institutions in the state of São Paulo. So this joint seminar that we open today was to be the first step of this, to consolidate this more stable partnership. But we had to skip 2 years owing to the COVID pandemics. But I think that finally we are in business again. So from now on, we think we can discuss more permanent ways to strengthen this relationship. So I am very glad for this seminar and the visit, Dr. Banks. I hope this will be an opportunity to renew and extend the collaboration between the ICGEB and research institutions in the state of São Paulo. Our research institutes, our 6 public universities, so it's a good opportunity for this. What I can say is that I can assure you all that Fapesp And I'm now here accompanied by the scientific director of Fapesp, Professor Luiz Eugênio Melo, and I think we share the same view that we are prepared to fully support initiatives, but as always, they should be proposed and shaped by the research community. So we are prepared to support things that you can discuss and propose. That's all. Thank you very much.
Sim, Professor Paulo.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Brazil, welcome to São Paulo. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here representing the University of São Paulo, representing the President of the University of São Paulo, Professor Carlos Gilberto Carlotti Jr. Would like to welcome all of you. It's an important time for our country. We have to unite. And definitely the best way to unite is through knowledge, through science. As a representative of the University of São Paulo, I have to remember our motto, which is Scientia Vinces, to thrive through knowledge. And so it's an extreme pleasure to welcome you all from all parts of the world to strengthen the relationship that was started in 2018, and that we only have the opportunity of welcoming you now after the worst of the pandemic is past. I'm a physicist by training. My father was a physicist, but in his later years, he switched to biology. So probably, wisdom came to him, not to me yet. I'm absolutely certain that biology is the science of this century, so work hard, learn a lot, and help us fight infectious diseases, with all our knowledge, all our might. Thank you very much. Welcome to São Paulo and to Brazil.
I think before Dr. Marcelo Morales start his words, I would like to say that also he's an ICGEB board member for Brazil, on top of his position as secretary.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. Paulo, Zago, Banks, Dimas, and Antonio. And thank you for the invitation to be here. First of all, I would like to congratulate the participant of this workshop, the Emerging Infectious Disease, Biology, Prevention, and Treatment. And I'm happy to participate in this event and collaborate to strengthening the cooperation between Brazil and ICGEB. We were there in ICGEB in a visit in 2020, I guess. I don't have the picture, but we were there and working very hard to have this. Yes. And it was a very nice visit, and we have a lot of plans and work together. We are following, I have to say that we have been following the development of some global trends in the field of science, technology, and innovation here in Brazil. The digitalization of science and innovation, the access to research data, the deepening international cooperation in research, and design the national mission-oriented programs are some examples that we did here also. Furthermore, global grand challenges in health have become more prominent after the current COVID-19 pandemic, and science, technology, and innovation has the most important role to solve this problem, and was not different here in Brazil. From the point of view of science, the Minister of Science, Technology, and Innovation, we put all the effort together with the Brazilian scientists to face the pandemic. Science plays an important role in the strengthening international cooperation and vice versa. Contemporarily, health global challenges do not recognize geopolitical boundaries and do not encourage isolate ways of resolution. This is the case of emerging infectious disease, where it is necessary for engagement in the scientific from different countries for them to understand the development and new treatment, vaccines, and diagnostics. The production of science and the frontier of knowledge and cutting-edge technology to overcome global challenges in health depend on expensive experiments and large research infrastructure, impossible in some cases to be afforded by a single country. That's why we are engaged in this collaboration with ICGEB. We believe the solution necessarily involves cooperation for the sharing, installation, and co-financing. I believe we are ready to intensify our collaboration to join international initiative. Brazil can contribute in a vast areas of knowledge, include the ones that we have expertise in research and development, for example, in chronic and non-communicable disease, advanced therapies, particularly in personalized medicine, regenerative medicine, include stem cells and gene therapy. And this institution has a lot to contribute. And also in gene therapy and many other issues, in Brazil excels at the good science in the use of the best available scientific knowledge to advise, subsidize the public policies. The Brazilian policy of science, technology, and innovation, with the strong support for the training and human capital and the monetization of infrastructure of laboratories and universities in research centers, it's responsible for expensive and expressive increase of indication related to master and qualified doctors, researchers, published scientific articles. We are 14th in the ranking of publications in the world. And the new technologies, for companies, the new legal science, technology, and innovation framework that we have here in Brazil is operational since last year. I'm convinced that will contribute to absorption of researchers and increase of their knowledge capacity. Brazil should bring science, technology, and innovation close to society, bring it together economic development and social inclusion. In the country, both the increase of students interested in science and increase productivity is really very important. We emphasize the importance of promoting entrepreneurship, of conducting science, technology, discoveries, market alliance between university and companies. Today, the main properties of science, technology, and innovation in Brazil are related to the formation and scientific education, since the basic level, the approximation of the academia with the business sector, investment and research infrastructure, and innovation to generate knowledge and wealth with science, technology, and health. Dear participants of this workshop, we consider that the work here is extremely important. So in this way, I hope that we'll have a very nice meeting here. We are going through a very difficult moment. Our nation are facing a great challenge to overcome the COVID-19 and its consequence. In this way, we need to encourage and join cooperation so that we can overcome the challenge caused by the pandemic and other infectious disease. Thank you very much.
Dr. Lawrence, I think as the star, you are the last one, please.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. First of all, it is a great honour for me to be here today in this really wonderful country. I've not been here as often as I like, and we should have been here sooner, but we've had the last couple of years has been a challenge for everybody. So it really is a great pleasure to be here. I love Brazil. I love the environment, and in particular, I love the science. It's a fantastic scientific community, and I must say that on behalf of ICGEB, it does really represent one of our strongest partners, and is really a joy to work with. So again, thank you very much for having me here. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the organisers of this meeting. Really a massive thank you to Institute of Butantan and the University of Sao Paulo. You've been great to work with, and I realise there's a huge number of people that have been involved in putting this meeting together, and I thank every single one of them for the tremendous effort that they've made. And I should say that it's been impeccably organised. My meetings and office department back in Trieste in HQ, I hear if there's problems, and I've heard nothing about this one, so I know it's gone absolutely perfectly. So thank you all so much, and really the program looks tremendous. I think you've really put together something that's really outstanding. And you know, going back to our meeting in Trieste in late 2018, I think it's rather prophetic that at that time we were thinking, let's have a meeting on emerging infectious diseases. And of course, we all know what happened. It's been kicked down the line for a couple of years, but finally we're here. I think the topic remains equally, if not more important. I don't want to sort of take anybody's thunder or go into scientific details at the moment, but I think one of the things that we learned from the pandemic is the flexibility in science. From my own perspective in ICGEB, you know, many scientists who had never even thought of working on virology or had come anywhere near an RNA virus, basically down tools and redirected entire laboratory efforts to try and meet the challenges of the pandemic, whether that was through diagnostics, through development of novel therapies or vaccine technologies. And I really do think it showed a remarkable flexibility in the scientific community, because I think people at large have often thought, oh, scientists, they work on a specific topic for their entire life and just focus on that small single area. But I think what this showed was that there's an incredible flexibility and capacity within the scientific community, which I think up until the pandemic had not really been fully made use of. I would also like to make one plea. The pandemic brought many challenges, and it was devastating in many parts of the world. But it also brought some enormous benefits, and particularly in the areas of diagnostics, vaccine technologies, disease surveillance. And we have infrastructures now that have been implemented in many parts of the world, so that we really do now have the capacity to respond to current and future pandemics. The danger is that we will lose it. We mustn't be complacent. And so I think that what the pandemic's given us, we mustn't lose that capability. And we should always remain aware that the platforms that are now in place are going to be incredibly important in the future as we go forward, because there will be more pandemics. And I'm sure that, as we'll hear in the course of this meeting, we may get some clues as why we should be looking and what we should be looking out for. So that is really my general comments for this meeting. I'm really looking forward to the next few days. I think there's going to be tremendous science. And if I'm allowed, I'd just like to take this opportunity just to present a few slides about the ICGEB. I'm sure that many of you probably don't know us, and I'd just like to give you a little bit of background as to what we are as an organisation, and why we're supporting this this particular meeting.
Yep.
So ICGEB, we're an international organisation. And what that means is it means we're not owned by a given country. We're actually owned by all of our member states, which currently stands at 66. And within all of those countries, we have representatives who basically direct the organisation in terms of what we do. And we're very honoured to have Professor Morales with us today, who is the governor for Brazil, and he attends our governing council every year and helps deliberate with all the other countries about the directions and activities the organisation will pursue. As you can see from the map, we also have 3 research institutes, with the headquarters is located in Trieste in Italy. We have labs in New Delhi in India, and I'm really very happy to have a couple of the colleagues from New Delhi also attending this meeting. And we also have labs in Cape Town in South Africa. We're basically in the business of using science to promote international development. And so we're a little unusual in this sort of development setting in that we actually have laboratories. We're not just administration, we're not just talking about science, we actually do science. And so this is our mandate. It's basically to be a centre of excellence for research and training in molecular biotechnology and molecular biology, specifically addressing the needs of our member countries. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. I'm really looking forward to the next couple of days to discuss with senior management from and also obviously scientists within Brazil to learn from you what more and how we can expand collaboration and what ICGEB can bring to Brazil that is of value. And I like to think that what we're doing is we're using science for development. And so if I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. So we basically have the research programs, and intimately linked to those, it obviously provides a background for opportunities for education and fellowships for students from all over the world. I'm only very briefly going to just touch on what we do. Infectious diseases remains a major problem globally, particularly in the global south. We have very strong activities in parasitology and virology. And as I just mentioned, SARS-CoV-2 saw a massive retooling within ICGEB in terms of what we do on that particular virus. Non-communicable diseases remain something that is also extremely important, and we have world-leading teams in cardiovascular research, various aspects of immunology, and also cancer biology. And the next slide, please. And medical biotechnology. One of the things that we're really very keen on is ensuring that the fruits of molecular biology and biotechnology actually get to the people who need it at prices that are affordable. I think this is something that's absolutely fundamental. And so we have very large programs in developing technologies for transfer to companies, academic institutions within our different member states, and certainly within the biosimilar development area, we have very close collaboration with WHO, where we're running training programs for education in pharmaceutical processes and drug repurposing. We are also very much into the area of developing technologies that can be used in low resource environments, and we have a very strong collaboration with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in also supporting those types of activities in Africa. Industrial biotechnology is also something that is very important, and this is a program being largely supported by the government of India on the development of second and third generation biofuels, bioremediation and carbon capture. And then finally, we have to remember that if we have healthy populations, we need to be able to feed them. And so we have a lot of activities in the area of the agricultural sector, particularly looking at the development of novel biofertilizers and biopesticides. If I could have the next slide, please. And this is just the papers are irrelevant, but we are an international organization, and if you look at the authorship of what we produce, we have scientists from more than 40 countries working in the labs. So this is something that I think is also a real plus for the ICGEB. For the young people to get exposed to that type of international environment is a real positive. Next slide, please. Next slide. And these are just some of the programs that we run for PhDs, postdocs, long-term, short-term. And next slide, please. And we have people coming from all over the world. And we actually do quite well with Brazil. We have a lot of people come from Brazil, but we would love to be able to expand what we do both within the country here and in ICGEB laboratories. But also, we also have another program, and this is a smart mobility program where we promote collaboration between ICGEB's different member countries. Brazil has taken part in this. We've had several fellows that have gone to different countries around the world as part of research collaborations. And again, this is something that we're really very keen to expand. And I'm happy to discuss any of these programs with any of you if you're interested. Next slide. So we're also in the business of organizing meetings, courses and workshops such as this one. If I could have the next slide. And this year we managed to put together 27 meetings in 19 countries. The call is open again for next year. And I, for one, from what I've seen so far, will be delighted to put together something else here in maybe a year or so from now. And just off the top of my head, I think something in emerging technologies in vaccines would be something that would be really cool. Could I have the next slide, please? We are also a grant funding agency. They're small grants. They're extremely popular and they're extremely competitive. But we do support the next slide. But these grants actually have some nice attributes. They're intended to be international, so they support international collaboration for many of our member countries. We have a program for early career scientists. So if any of you know somebody who has been postdocing overseas, has done a really good postdoc and they want to come back to Brazil to set up their own lab, then we're very happy to try and support those individuals. I think they're really the fundamental basis for going forward with science. And the grants are fairly flexible in how the money can be spent. We'll have the next slide, please. And this is, again, just to show where those grants are being held. Again, Brazil, it has great science, so it's always very competitive in these applications. And I'd love to be able to discuss further with Professor Morales about how we might be able to expand what we can support in Brazil through this program. Can I have the next slide, please? And I'm just going to finish with this one. We're very active in the area of making sure science can get to the public. We have a very active outreach program, and I'd be very happy to discuss that with any of you if you're interested in what we do in that area. But we also are very lucky in that we also have a very active seminar program with scientists coming from all over the world, and also at some of our meetings and courses. All of these activities are recorded, and they're available free for download on our website. And so, certainly speaking to the lecturers in the room who are working at the university here, these lectures can be really valuable teaching tools, and I do encourage you to visit our website and see what's on there. I think they're really some tremendous material. And if I could have the last slide, that's just to thank you all again. That's my email. If anybody has any questions or queries about what we do or would like more information, please do drop me a line, and thank you so much.
You did very well. Ok. Dá para pôr um pouquinho mais para cá a televisão, para o monitor, para eles poderem ver? Tá bem? Mais para cá. Isso. Yeah, before we have a break, we have 3 very short videos. One video is from ICGEB, one video from USP, one video from Butantan. And please, yes, if you put a little bit more, they can see it.
Here at Instituto Butantan, we work tirelessly in the service of life. Since 1901, we save millions of Brazilian lives with the bubonic plague serum and vaccines against influenza, diphtheria, tetanus and pertussis, rabies, the new coronavirus, and soon against dengue. We are one of the largest producers of vaccines and sera in Latin America and a global reference of efficiency and quality. We are one of the largest distributors of vaccines for the National Immunization Program of the Brazilian Unified Health System, producing 100% of its flu vaccines. We also work together with international partners to increase our vaccine portfolio. We produce most of the hyperimmune sera used in Brazil against venomous animals, bacterial toxins, and the rabies virus. In 2019, we automated the process of equine plasma collection through plasmapheresis, improving the quality of the serum's raw material. We host a large-scale infrastructure with 26 laboratories and a bioindustrial center with state-of-the-art factories, such as the monoclonal antibody factory that will produce medicines for cancer and autoimmune diseases. We are constantly expanding our production capacity. Around 80 infrastructure construction projects are planned to improve our bioindustrial center, such as the multipurpose cell-based vaccine production site. This factory is one of the few BSL-3 facilities in Brazil, and one of its products is the COVID-19 vaccine. In a park with an extensive green area, we have historic buildings, 4 museums, and a vast archive of documents and historical objects that preserve our centennial memory. Since 2018, the School of Higher Education of Instituto Butantan offers extension courses and postgraduate programs, confirming our purpose of promoting scientific education. Our Science Park inspires visitors to experience the potential of Brazilian science and the impact of high-quality public health. We are committed to the organization, preservation, and promotion of our institutional memory, because we believe the past and the future walk together. And the future starts now. This is science. This is our history, without borders. Our journey has taught us that all of it was possible and is possible now because we work together in the service of life.
1934, the University of São Paulo is a Brazilian public institution open for all schools of thought. Its purpose is to offer a quality education and form citizens committed to the development of the surrounding society. USP counts currently on 7 campuses. In the state's countryside, Bauru, Lorena, Piracicaba, Pirassununga, Ribeirão Preto, and São Carlos. And in the capital, the Armando de Sales Oliveira University City, in addition to other campuses in different regions of the city of São Paulo. Besides its campuses, the university counts on 16 more units spread across the state of São Paulo. And it's present in 2 other Brazilian states, Rondônia and Paraná, where 2 advanced research centers function in the biomedical and agrozootechnics areas. Its area of about 76 million square meters responds to the academic, social, and cultural needs of its more than 80,000 students. Therefore, the university is supported by the tripod: teaching, research, and culture extension. USP World. All of its efforts have led the University of São Paulo to a remarkable position in the international rankings, and it's acknowledged as one of the best universities in the world. By chasing the goal of offering to the student a consistent academic, social, and cultural education, University of São Paulo has achieved its maturity to trace solid lines for the future.
The ICGEB is an amazing organisation. It combines the pursuit of top-class scientific research, aiming to provide benefits for the populations in all of our countries.
Well, we now have a 30-minute break, a half an hour break, and we're going to have a coffee break outside, and we resume in 30 minutes then here, back for the keynote lectures. Thank you very much.
We should stay here just for a picture, for one picture. Picture.
Okay, historical picture. So we can show the pictures in the next meeting.
E 2, 6, som.
Alô, alô. Ok, ok. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to ICGEB Brazil event. After 2 years, it's really great pleasure to have you all here. So now would like to open your programs with the presentation your speaker, Dr. Marcelo Morales. Among the information in extensive curriculum, I emphasize graduation in medicine from the University of São Paulo, MD, PhD, full profession at Federal Universidade of Rio de Janeiro, with a line of research in the field of biophysics, with emphasis on cellular biophysics and molecular biology. He works mainly on the following subjects: gene expression of ion transfer, cell therapies in model, in Kennedy lung disease, gene therapy in animal model, using virion and no-virion vectors in prevalent disease, and the current Secretary of State for Research and Scientific Training of the Ministry of Science, Technology, Innovation. Dr. Morales, we would like to thank you so much for your presence at first ICGEB event in Brazil. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Sandra, for the introduction. First of all, it's a pleasure for me to be here in this institution that has a lot of contribution for the Brazilian population. And thank you, Sandra and Butantan, for the opportunity to show Dimas what we did at the level of Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation to face the pandemic. First of all, I would like to say that this meeting that you see here, the picture, that Zago, they are talking about pictures. This is one of the picture. This is iconic. I would like to share with you. Before the pandemic, I brought to the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation several scientists related to emerging virus pandemic and research to talk about how to face the pandemic. And those specialists provide all the information to face the pandemic during before the pandemic. This meeting was in February 10th in 2020. So with this pool of scientists, Brazilian scientists, we put together that we call the Redivirus MCTI. So they built a strategy, and the strategy we had, they did the support that you can see here. The support you can see here that we have we built a biobank in the Fiocruz. The monitoring of wild animals in the wild. We are monitoring animals, birds and bats in the entire country. This is amazing. This is made from the University of São Paulo. The water wasters, we are monitoring the virus also. And the infrastructure, we increased the infrastructure, bring the biosafety level of the laboratories from 2 to 3 in 18 institutions. Sequencing, We put together several universities that had already the sequencing apparatus and the people that can work with sequencing to sequence the virus in the entire country. There was Corona Omica MCTI that Butantan is part of that. A diagnostic subnet of Redivirus MCTI. This net of scientists, together with the Butantan, are bringing diagnostic kits, serological, molecular, RT-PCR, using artificial intelligence, medicine, new drugs to face the pandemic and to decrease the amount of virus in circulation, and the studies in vitro. Drug repositioning was the first step put by the scientists in February, because we have 10,000 molecules at CNP in Campinas to be searched, and 3 of them was showed to be good to decrease the amount of virus in vitro. Vaccines. We put together 15 strategies for vaccines. Why? To develop the vaccines in a new approach for RNA, DNA, protein, recombinant proteins, in different strategies to have the technology in Brazil made by Brazilian institutions and Brazilian scientists. This strategy, we have 15 strategies. Clinical trials, so many clinical trials, and impacts, economical, social impacts. We have an entire net of scientists working in the impacts, social and economic impacts of the COVID-19. So with this strategy, we had a project that we showed the federal government, and we put together 1 billion for this strategy. If the scientists didn't put together this strategy and the project, we didn't have money for facing the COVID-19 at the Minister of Science, Technology, Innovation environment. So with this project that we put together with the scientists, we had the strategy. The priority areas defined by the MCTI network, virus network, was diagnostics, as you can see here, science innovation to face pandemic through actions linked to diagnosis of SARS-CoV-2, implementation of rapid tests using nanotechnology, develop evaluation of quick and practical single genetic compared with the PCR, using mediating isothermal amplification, LAMP, performance evaluation of natural phenotype laboratory diagnosis of viral infection in different approaches, and the campaign that we call campaign laboratories. We put together 13 universities to bring those strategies of diagnostics to work together with the population in different universities to do the tests during the pandemic. And the contribution was huge with the campaign laboratories. It's not working. Okay. Clinical trials, so many clinical trials that we put together at Redivirus MCTI. See that at the beginning, we didn't know how to face the pandemic. Some strategies, as BCG, chloroquine, this after we see that chloroquine was not working, the scientists stopped this project. The treatment with the convalescent plasma transfusion, this was very nice with the Butantan also. Ophthalmological evaluation, the trials induced pneumonia in severe SARS-CoV-2 with nitazoxanide, early therapy with nitazoxanide, and also tenofovir fumarate so many antivirus approaches, atazanavir, daclastavir associated with the sobosvovir, so many clinical trials, because we didn't know how to face this virus at the beginning. After the world showed that some of the approaches didn't work, the projects stopped or went to the final approach to show, and some of them, most of them showed that it didn't work. Nitazoxanide showed since the beginning that it decreased the number of the virus in vitro. And clinical trials just show that it decreased the viral load in patients in the early stage, but didn't show that, didn't stop the patients to go to the hospital. So we stop here. Was published in a very good journal, Impact 14, European Respiratory Journal, and we stopped what science showed. Next, please. Support. We increase here the approach with the epidemiological surveillance, structuring also a biobank at Fiocruz, the COVID-19 monitoring in wastewaters network. We show that the increase of the virus in the water reproduce before the increase of the virus in the population and start the people to go to the hospital. Was a very good approach, it's still working. A national network for epidemiological surveillance of coronavirus and other emergent pathogens in the bats, birds, and other wild reservoir. This network that we call Previr MCTI is still working for monkeypox. These scientists were put together, and during the monkeypox also, they start to search for animals, pets, dogs, and cats of the contaminated people. So we have some case here in São Paulo. This network of scientists went to the house of these contaminated people to search for animals, pets in the house. We increased the laboratories, the level of security of the laboratories in 18 institutions, and also the impact of the COVID social and economic impacts. Next, please. So here is Previr MCTI. As you can see here in Cerrado, Pantanal, Atlantic Forest, Amazon, bats and other animals, birds were searched, and this is called Previr MCTI. Professor Durigon is part of this network. And this is linked to the information about the Brazilian biodiversity, the CBBR, and is linked to the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. So it's very structured infrastructure for this search. As you can see here, the entire country, we have this with students and scientists doing the test in bats. Next, please. And in the wastewater, you can see here the increase of the copies of RNA in the water. After that, it started the number of people contaminated looking for help in the hospitals. Next, please. The Corona Omica MCTI was a large-scale sequencing of the virus circulating in the country. So we have this network of scientists with sequencing and detecting the mutations, and also the new, for example, we're still working, searching for new mutations in the virus. Next, please. So as you can see here, more than 10,000 approaches from the Corona Omica MCTI. And all these sequences are linked to GSite, is an international platform for this report. Next, please. And we have the alternative rapid detection of variants and their implications for the epidemiology of SARS-CoV-2, mapping the sequencing in different approach, quick approach. Next, please. Vaccine, next. So we foster 15 strategies in 10 projects. Here you can see here Butantan, several universities, USP, Unifesp, Butantan is everywhere, right? And USP and UFMG in Minas Gerais, so with a different strategy. Nucleic acid chimeras, nanoparticles, VLP, recombinant proteins. Why? Because we want to produce vaccines in our country. I didn't know, but we never built a strategy for vaccines since the beginning in Brazil. It's important to produce in the country. Butantan and Fiocruz make a huge contribution in the production of vaccines. And we have to put those institutions together with the universities with a clear strategy to produce the vaccines in Brazil, not only for COVID, but dengue, chikungunya, Zika, yellow fever, and whatever. Next, please. That was the strategy. So it was very difficult to put together this strategy and bring the money for this strategy. Pfizer approximately invested $2 billion in the strategy for clinical trials, and since the beginning for clinical trials for the vaccine. For our vaccine, R$500 million is necessary for the whole strategy, all the preclinical and clinical trials. It's not expensive if we see the challenge that we have and the impact that we have. So we put together in 5 strategies was qualified for phase 1 and 2 for clinical trials. Phase 1 and 2, 5 strategies, 5 projects. Next, please. And those are the 5 strategies that were qualified. One is replicon of RNA from Cimatec, together with Sanai Cimatec with HDT in United States. Phase 1 and 2 clinical trials in the Chimera with the University of Minas Gerais, SpinTech, that was approved recently, is going to start clinical trials. This one, the first one, started the clinical trials in January. This strategy, Versamune MCTI from Ribeirão Preto, from UFRJ, the Federal University of Rio, and from University of São Paulo, this nasal sprayer clinical for vaccine. Next, please. This was in January 13th, where it started the clinical trials for the RNA vaccine. Next, please. And was recommended by the Anvisa, the 2 vaccines. Next, please, for phase 2. And for monkeypox, also the retrovirus MCTI was requested to face the monkeypox. One strategy is to bring the vaccine, the MVA, that we call MVA, from NIH. And we brought the vaccine from NIH, and we are doing all the steps to produce the vaccine for pox, let's say that way, because not only monkeypox, in Brazil. So this strategy, we have the Federal University of Minas Gerais, we have Fiocruz, and also we are going to have Butantan in this strategy for production in the country, the MVA. Next, please. So, besides of SARS-CoV-2 and monkeypox, we have other strategies for calls. For example, for research for long COVID, with 27 million for face this new phase of the pandemic. Research and innovation for treatment and rehabilitation of people with rare disease, 35 million with this call. Biotechnology in health, 31 million. Nutrition and new strategy for sustainable defensive in agriculture, 36 million. 37 million for anti-resistance approach. And also new technologies for bioinformatics and biotechnology, 15,000. Biotechnology applied to agriculture and human health and environment, 50 million. And also defensives for sustainable defensives for agriculture, fertilizers, new fertilizers, 36 million. And next, please. So I have to say that to put together all the scientists was a challenge, but was very pleasant for me as a scientist, because when we call the scientists, they answer very quick. And they are very enthusiastic to produce, not only to produce science, but the case of the pandemic, some of the scientists are here, and we work very hard together to bring the science in front of everything, mainly in the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. And we have the answer. The answer is the strategy that I show you here. I don't know if everybody knew what we did at the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. But I'm pleased to tell you what we did, not me. Because when I say we did, the pool of scientists and institutions that include Butantan and several institutions, the universities that are great people working in science, we could face at the level of science, technology, and innovation to bring the country in another level. For example, in vaccine, to bring the new strategies for vaccine, not only for COVID, to have a pool of scientists that can work for vaccine for dengue, chikungunya, Zika, yellow fever, and other diseases that we have to work together to face what the population needs. So thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to show you what we did. Thank you.
Okay, the questions and answers are going to be at the end of the two talks. So now I'm very glad to introduce Professor Marco Antonio Zago, who is currently the president of Fapesp, the São Paulo Research Foundation. He is graduated in medicine by the University of São Paulo, Ribeirão Preto Medical School, where he also got his PhD in medical sciences, has an extensive curriculum of contribution to science, especially in hematology, cell therapy, and also contribution to the University of São Paulo as provost of research, later as president of the university and also president of the National Research Council. So, Professor Zago, please, to the stage.
Ok. Eu vou mudar o slide ou vocês vão mudar?
O senhor precisa apontar lá no Rafael, bem ali.
Sei, aqui.
Lá no slide. Isso.
Tá bom. Ok. Okay. Good afternoon again. It's a pleasure to be here. As Rodrigo said, I was a scientist many years ago, but today I'm involved in science policy since I was the president of the University of São Paulo, president of CNPq, and now president of Fapesp, which is the research foundation of the state of São Paulo. So my focus will be the state of São Paulo, in contraposition what Marcelo did was and to show the situation in the country. And this is important because the state of São Paulo is very small geographically. It's only 3% of the geographic area of Brazil, but it is responsible for 1/3 of the PIB, the GDP, and produces about 40% of science in Brazil. So it has a huge concentration of researchers and researcher institutions. And I'll tell you about the strategy of Fapesp, the research agency, in relation to funding science and research and funding especially in innovation in relation to development of drugs and innovative therapies. So the state has a very complex system of science and technology, which involves research institutions related to the state government, to companies, higher education. For instance, the state has 6 public universities and private non-profit institutions. In relation to companies, we have mapped in the state of São Paulo 10,000 companies which you could describe as innovative or related to who have that have their own research and development programs. The state has about 54,000 researchers, and about 54%, say most of them are in technological companies. About 40% are in the higher education system, and then in private non-profit and government. So most of the researchers in the state of São Paulo have their job in companies. And this is the only, among the 27 states of the country, it's the only state in which there are more researchers in companies in opposition to the higher education system. When you look at investments in the year of 2019, the total investment in research and development in the state of São Paulo was about $10 billion PPP. More than half of this came from the companies, and about 4.4 billion came from government. When you look at the share of the government, most of it came from the state government. And again, São Paulo is the only among the 27 units in Brazil in which the state puts more money in research and development than the federal government. Very well. So, as a consequence, Fapesp, say the state agency, has a big importance in this picture. Fapesp now is completing 60 years of existence, so 2022 is the 60th anniversary of Fapesp, which was founded, say, in 1962. Since then, we have already awarded 180,000 fellowships, 130,000 research grants, and invested about $20 billion in research in the state of São Paulo. When you look at the last years, you see that between 2015 and 2019, we had about 10,000 new proposals approved every year. 2020 and 2021, this had a drop, and it's mainly because of the COVID epidemics. This diminished the research activity in the state of São Paulo. Although we have the money to support science, the demand, the number of people submitting projects dropped. And it has not returned to the old level thus far. Okay. So the mission of the São Paulo Research Foundation is to support research in all fields. So it's not only hard science and mathematics, medicine, but also social sciences, literature, and even arts. It's supported by 1% of the tax revenues of the state of São Paulo. And this is very important because the state of São Paulo is the state that has the largest share of tax revenues in the country. So we have 1% of these year after year. This gives stability, and you can, as a consequence, contract long-term projects, say 5 years or 10-year projects, which is difficult when you do not have, say, a fixed budget, and you have to negotiate the budget year after year, and also you depend on the say, wishes of the government. The second important point is not only a very stable budget, but also that we have an autonomous administration. So the members of the administration of Fapesp cannot be, say, dismissed by the government. We have mandates, and usually long mandates, so this cannot change very easily depending on the government will. So this gives stability. All our proposals are peer-reviewed. For instance, in the year of 2020, we had 14,000 proposals. All of them were peer-reviewed. But this number, as I told you, is slightly less than our usual level, which is more around 20,000 a year. We approved 6,000 new awards in 2021. This is our annual budget for the year 2021, $72 million PPP. And we have very varied, numerous, several strategies to support research. One is fellowships. We give fellowships for master's degree, for doctoral degree, for postdocs, and so on. Academic research, basic research projects, or university and industry joint research, small business research, research and development, and mission-oriented research. I will show some examples of these, showing especially how our strategies are used to support innovation in drug and therapies. As a consequence of this, as I said, today, Fapesp is the most relevant agency in the country to support research, owing to the reduction of support for research, development, and academic world in the federal government. As a consequence, today, Fapesp is the strongest supporter of science in Brazil, as you can see in the right side of the slide. Well, as I said, we have several strategies to support research. I'll look now at the strategies that are able or more important to support research for innovation. One is our program of research, innovation, and dissemination centers. These are 11-year programs, so you have a grant for a center which lasts for 11 years. Obviously, there are reviews during this time, but if you do well, if the research is going well, you have support for 11 years. We started in 2000 with this strategy with 12 centers, and today we have 17 centers. The second strategy is the National Institutes of Science and Technology. This is a federal program. It was actually created in 2009 when I was the president of the CNPq. But it's CNPq, so federal government, in association, in collaboration with the state research agencies. So in the state of São Paulo, we have 34 national institutes of science and technology which are supported by the federal government and by Fapesp. These are 5-year projects. The third strategy is support for small business research and development. So we support small business research and development companies, small companies. This program was created in 1997. And in all those years, we had an investment of over 400 million PPP. We have already financed more than 1,600 small companies, and most of them are startups. And the fourth strategy is what we call engineering or applied research centers. These are 10-year projects, so are agreements for 10 years between a partnership between Fapesp and a big company. Fapesp and big company put money together in a research institute, which carries on applied research focused on innovation. I will show you some examples, always in relation to drug development, therapy development, and so on. So, research, innovation, and dissemination centers. We have 3 that in some way are focused on questions of drug development or development of new therapies. One focused on obesity and comorbidities research center. The second one, innovation in biodiversity and drug discovery. And the Center for Cell Therapy, which is coordinated by Dimas Covas, but not here in Butantan, in Ribeirão Preto, which is our city of origin in the campus of University of São Paulo in Ribeirão Preto. In 2 cases, the same center is also supported by the National Institute for Science and Technology program. So the one in Campinas on obesity and diabetes, and the Center for Cell Therapy. Those are the values in reais. I didn't do the conversion. The other program, as I said, is the engineering or applied research centers. So these are 10 years project, I said, in which you have a collaboration between Fapesp and a big company. In this case, the companies are, for instance, IBM, Compartilhe, GSK, Equinor, Citroën, Braskem, Embraer, Ericsson, and so on. And the subjects of research are always subjects which involves some kind of innovation and application, technological application. For instance, plastic culture, new energy, low carbon economy, aerial mobility in the future, genomics, crop adaptation, and so on. In this program, we have 3 centers which are supported. 3 of them are agreement between GSK and Fapesp. One is in molecular targets in inflammatory diseases, which is working here in the Institute Butantan. The second one is a research center in green chemistry, which is located in the Federal University of São Carlos. And the third one is a research center for research in immuno-oncology. And it's located in the Einstein Institution here in São Paulo. Finally, we have a program which we call Research Centers for the State Development. In this case, these are projects that are selected by their quality, obviously, but in a previous discussion with the state government and the state secretaries, in which we look at aspects that are important for the state development. They are in many areas, say in engineering, in agriculture, but also in health. So in health science, we have the Center for Translational Science and Development of Biopharmaceuticals, which is located in the interior of the state, in Botucatu, and in which they are building a plant to produce samples for clinical tests, different clinical tests. So it will be a plant which can be used to produce an amount of samples sufficient to do a clinical test, for instance, a new vaccine and so on. The second one is the Center for Graft and Cell Therapy, which is located here and is coordinated by Dimas Covas again, I think, yes. Okay, but in this case, the project is focused on the scale up and optimization of a CAR T cell production, and everything involved to produce CAR T cell to treat neoplastic diseases. And finally, there is a Center for Xenograft Therapy, which is working in the medical school of the University of São Paulo and Bioscience Institute of USP and IPT. The idea is to do gene editing, cloning, and so on, to produce pigs which can produce organs for transplantation in humans, and to induce some kind of tolerance for xenotransplants in humans. So, as I said, one of the important networks in this aspect is this network in focused on the CAR T cell therapy for cancer. I have here the picture. As you know already, I'm a very fan of pictures. I like pictures because they tell a lot of things. And in this case, is the first patient here in Latin America who was treated with CAR T cell therapy for lymphoma. I think it was a lymphoma. And the patient did well, recovered from the disease, and died from an accident. Anyway, thus far, at least as I had the information, there were 7 patients already treated here in Brazil, always in this network. E agora? Finally, I listed the projects that we support at the moment for vaccine development. Some of them are supported only by Fapesp. Some of them are supported by many, supporters. For instance, the Ministry of Science and Technology, CNPq, universities. So every researcher looks for a basket of money coming from different sources. In the case of Fapesp, this is a list of vaccines. I'm doing some time so that you can have a look at the names of the projects. And I think in the total are 13. So this is the continuation of this list of vaccine projects developed at the moment in the state of São Paulo, and that have financing from Fapesp. Yes, 13 active research projects, a total of 39 million at the moment. As you saw when I was talking, Butantan receives many of the grants because it has a lot of researchers who can apply and receive money from Fapesp. And I have here a summary of the financing for research in Butantan in the last years. And actually from the beginning of Fapesp, they received more than 1,000 grants and more than 1,400 fellowships. In the last 7 years, we invested here $71 million PPP. Finally, as I said, we support small business companies. And I selected some examples of small business companies supported by Fapesp that are doing something interesting in research in health and therapy and diagnostics and drug development. For instance, this company, NIAID, Drug Design and Development, is designing molecules that act on oxytocin receptors for mental illnesses. The other one, by diagnostic, developed an ELISA test, very practical, that you can use in the cats, for the cats and for the human, usually the owner, to identify spirotrichosis transmitted by cats. 3D biotechnology solutions developed an artificial skin with vascularization for transplants. The skin is bioprinted, produced with co-cultures of melanocytes, keratinocytes, fibroblasts, endothelial cells. Endothelial cells will produce vasculature, so you have a skin, artificial skin with vascularization. Another example is the simplified retinograph, which is at least 5 times less expensive than traditional imported retinographs produced by iTech. This BioLink is a company that developed a test that detects all variants, all circulating variants of SARS-CoV-2. And this company, Timpel, which we supported, well before the pandemic started, say 6 years ago, we supported this company, which produces an electrical impedance tomograph that can be used in the thorax of the patient. So it's a small device. You can take it to the bedside and you can, do a non-invasive monitoring of the lung function, which demonstrated to be very important during the epidemics, and they exported it to many countries. So these are some examples of small companies supported by Fapesp. So, in summary, how Fapesp supports research for development of drugs, immunobiologicals, innovative therapies, and medical devices. We do capacity building with fellowships in Brazil and abroad. We create the opportunity to bring researchers to São Paulo. We support basic research, academic research, which may be important for practical application. It doesn't need to have a practical application. Sometimes the practical application will come in the moment when you are not expecting. So we put a lot of money in this kind of research. But we also support long-term, say 10-year projects for research and innovation, support small business companies, partnerships with big companies, partnership with the government and agencies and the secretaries, and support of state research institutes. So we try to work in this environment, academic community, companies, and government. And that's it. This is my address, Presidência, without this thing. Thank you very much.
Okay, please, any question?
Thank you for excellent presentations. I'll introduce myself. I'm Leonard Perisky, Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. I actually have comments. And first, to make sure I have names correct, Secretary Morales, I enjoyed immensely how you highlighted the information that was being done in pivoting your scientific networks during outbreaks. I think that's a message that needs to be broadcast. One of the things that I'll state, and the reason I want to emphasize this, scientists are poor communicators. We do not share things. And this is one of the reasons that we have had this issue the last decade where science has been ignored. And I thought your presentation was excellent. I do feel this needs to get out to a community other than scientists. The one other observation I'd like to pass along to you and hear your comments, but I do have a question also for Professor Zago, is the need to continue basic research into immune systems. One of the challenges we're having with the coronavirus is we do not understand the human immune response very well. And we have a very limited pool of knowledge on this. It's growing, but it's limited. And this has impact on the development of vaccines, which I think is exceptional. And then for Professor Zago, one thing I thought was especially impressive was the work that is being supported by your organization in commercializing basic science. And I think this is a message that needs to go out too. I was not aware of the depth of that, and I would welcome comments from either of you on those points that I've raised. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your comment. And I think we have to say more about what we are doing as scientific community. I'm professor from the Federal University of Rio. I work with gene therapy and stem cell therapy. I'm not a bureaucratic person only. That's very boring. But it was a pleasure to work with the pool of scientists to build this strategy together. But you're right. But I didn't have money to communicate everything in the big audience, like journals and newspapers or whatever. So I had a choice to invest in science or to publicize everything. So we're still working with the different people, and I went to the International Health Organization with the Minister of Science, Technology, and Innovation, and they were surprised about the strategy and what we did. When I say what we did, I include all the scientists in Brazil, and also the different institutions in Brazil, especially Zago, the institutions not only, but especially from São Paulo. So we had a contribution in the entire country. And we still have the nets that I showed here working, still working, in the prevention and the monitoring in the environment and new variants of the viruses in the entire country. We're still working. Because we were very well succeeded in this network, we are keeping the network of scientists in Redivirus MCTI to work in new pandemics and new strategies, for example, in monkeypox. So thank you for your comment. Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, we are poor communicators. And I see most of the people in this audience are young people in training, and they should train to communicate. It's not, when they are doing their work at laboratory, they do not evaluate how important is to know how to tell other people who are not a researcher, who are not at the university, what they do. Because in the end, it's society who gives us money to work. Mm-hmm. And we should tell them what we are doing, how we are doing, and they should understand. Because if you tell them and they do not understand, they think we are doing something that is not important. obviously, this period of pandemics was important in putting science every day at our house, at the television shows, and so on. But this is going away. Now it's politics, it's the elections, and something else, and then the economy. But we have this responsibility. And I have already tried, and I'll try again, to put together some programs to train young scientists, young people who are doing their doctoral thesis, PhD, and so on, to learn how to communicate. I remember once visiting the ICGEB in Trieste. I participate in a meeting they would do every month and so on, and to bring people from the community and to tell them what they are doing. I think this is essential. This is one important point. The second point, yes, at this presentation, I made it especially to say, put in evidence how we do this aspect of innovation and commercialization. But I should tell you that most of our budget is for science without any additive. So it's researcher initiated the research. He or she can select any topics, and it will be evaluated, and if found sound base, it will be financed. But in the last years, it became evident that we should also have some topics related to innovation, related to applied technology, that we could show, especially for the government that supports us, because it was usual among members of government in the 10 years ago and so on, and also among, say, people from companies saying, well, they do something, I don't know exactly what, but they published in journals, and that's all they do. So we should tell them that there is other kind of activities we actually do. So this is especially done for this end. Okay, thank you.
Just to complement, if you allowed me, Sandra.
Oh, yes, please.
I want to complement that we have at the Ministry of Science and Technology, when I took place in 2019, I put together a committee of specialists in different areas. I'm not in charge only for health, because I'm in charge of Antarctic ocean, biomas, biodiversity, space, health, physics, biophysics, all the science. And I have a committee of specialists to give me support for decision in different areas. And this is one point that's really very important. And we have to communicate that also, that the decision from the State Secretary, National Secretary for Science and Technology is made by a committee of scientists. Thank you.
Some other point? Okay, okay. Any question? No? Okay, Anna, okay.
There is someone.
Okay. Please.
Do I have to get up? Do I have to get up? Okay. Hi. Okay, so I had a critical, a question. I saw that Fapesp, they reduced the number of research proposal, receiving the number of proposal after pandemic happened. I was wondering if that could be due to, impaired confidence for non-pandemic related researchers from not, applying for new grant. because it's not, pandemic related. I'm wondering, because of the COVID, the most of the focus of the research had been focused on, COVID itself and putting more money into, oh my God, I'm nervous.
Yes.
Putting more money into the COVID research, so that could, also drive out those other researchers that is not directly related in pandemic research. Could that be a factor?
No, unfortunately, it is not this. What we saw is, a general diminution of all academic activities because the universities were closed, they were working online, laboratories were mostly closed, animal houses were not working. So there was a very general reduction of activity. Even the city, the city was absolutely empty. No people were. And this created an interruption in the submission of research projects and even in demand for PhD supports and postdoctoral supports. And we created, an express line to receive proposals for people who were doing research in some other area and wished to change at that moment to look at some aspect of COVID pandemics. So people doing research, say, in Zika virus or another, and they saw an opportunity immediately. We did this very quickly. We offered them the opportunity to change their project to research in COVID. But this was partially successful, but we saw this reduction, and many other agencies in the world saw the same reduction in the research activity. As a consequence, we still have a lower number of proposals, and also you are Brazilian, no?
No.
No, from where are you?
I'm from the U.S.
U.S. What people saw at different universities here in Brazil is that the PhD programs also have less candidates this year when we do not have anymore the question of COVID. So my impression is that this pandemic, this epidemic changed the world definitely. Changed the way young people look at their life, the future life, and many changed the options. So I think universities and all the research community should now look at a different way and again hear the young people and see where they wish to go now in 2022, 23, and so on.
I have a comment.
Yes,
so,
please. I'm willing to hear the young people.
No, as a young person. Okay. You said that you guys were pulling people out from different area to, work towards COVID during pandemic. Do you think it was a good idea? I mean, I think, I work in neglected tropical diseases. I felt that instead of pulling those people from working in Zika, working in, leishmania, to work in COVID to, respond to the pandemic, which I think is important. But don't you think you guys should have more, continuously support those diseases that are not, directly related to COVID? I mean,
but we maintain the support. We just offer the opportunity to those who wished to change at the moment because saw there an opportunity.
Then it was an express thing. You gave them an advantage to pivot out from.
No advantage. We just said, yes, you can change your project, and what more you need to do this new project, because they were geared in one direction. So, but it was a small number. It did the difference in number, in total number. The question in total number is that we had a very, very important, say, decrease in the number of people demanding from different, from different universities, and the same occurred in other states in Brazil. So it was the consequence of, the changing of the environment, the academic environment, the presence every day at the laboratory, meeting people, doing seminars, cannot be substituted by video conferences. That's my Michel.
Yeah,
please.
so Michel Nussenzweig, Rockefeller University. So you've both done an amazing job showing us what you've done, and it's really commendable. But what I wanted to ask is, and you focused on the marvelous accomplishments. What are the greatest challenges that you face scientifically going forward for science in Brazil, from Fapesp and from the federal government, and what are you doing to face those challenges?
Can I? Very good question. I think the major thing, we have technology, we have good scientists in Brazil, but I think the major challenge, not problem, challenge that we have in Brazil is to focus in production, in science, in health, in good practice, to make the product in a good practices, to have the product certificated by Anvisa. So we have so many good scientists producing in new therapies, stem cells, gene therapy, new molecules, but still in the bench. What I face when I put together all the scientists that are producing the 15 vaccines, they didn't know how to face the regulatory from Anvisa. So since the beginning, I put Anvisa together to talk with them. And it was really very difficult. And we have some gaps to face in Brazil. How to produce the bench in a good practice, new molecules for clinical trials, to bring this scientific production into wealth to the population. This is a huge challenge. If we don't organize the chain to get the product, to get the science, and to put the product like vaccines, we are not going to have independence in this country. The challenge to put the 15 strategies, to have the money, is $500 million reais. It's not a lot of money to put one vaccine in clinical trials, preclinical and clinical trials, phase 1 and 2 and 3. Phase 3 cost 300 million. It's not much, but it was difficult to get the money, but we got the money. But the challenge is to put together all the institutions working together to face this challenge, to produce new products in a good practice facing the regulatory. Because I am a scientist from basic science. We produce science for gene therapy, stem cells. Well, I produce my science and I publish, and that's fine for the agencies, Fapesp, CNPq, and CAPES, that give me the money. But I had 1 billion, and I had to give the money not only for production. Of course, we are going to produce papers, but the challenge was to produce the vaccine, the kits for diagnostics, whatever. So to face the regulatory is the challenge, is the key. And we have to work together with the different institutions in Brazil to face this. We have to have Butantan, Fiocruz, different universities together facing this regulatory to bring the products to Anvisa, to certificate the product. Then the SUS can introduce these new molecules, new strategies to the health. I'm talking about health, but I think this is the challenge that we have to face.
Okay. I'll not try to answer for Brazil. It's too big and too diverse. I think it's an illusion to think you can have solutions for Brazil. I'm much more thinking, and in the last years I became a very defender of regional solutions in Brazil, because, you know, it's too large. Brasilia is too far, too distant from the Amazon, from Pará, from the Northeast. It's always too distant. So I feel more comfortable when we plan locally. For the general government and the country, I think what we need at the moment is a clear decision to put money in science. And this is not what has happened in the last years. So I think the biggest change in Brazil in relation to science and technology is to release all the money which was in the last years planned for science and technology. This money should be released. When I was president of the CNPq, the situation was that all the money that had been retained in the past years were being released. So I enjoyed the best of the world. So I was the president of a national agency with a budget that increased year after year. So we could do and organize big projects in the country, such as the National Institutes of Science and Technology. So that's the only thing I can say about, say, the federal and the national situation. Now, when I look at São Paulo, I see as the most important agenda for us is to keep on and to expand the capacity building, the formation of young people, young researchers, and technicians in all areas, much more strongly than we do at the moment, and if possible, to bring people from abroad, such as the Chinese are doing now. So we are looking at programs to offer. We already have some programs like this one, which offers opportunity for people from abroad who wish to come to Brazil. So for 5 years, we have a good fellowship, and we help them to have their own laboratory so that they can be independent. If you come from the States or the India, so on, and come to Brazil in this program, Young Investigator, you can have your own laboratory, so you don't need to have a chief. You are your own boss in relation to research. So we need to increase this. I think this is one point. The second point is that we should look at how we are say, educating and orienting our PhD students here in Brazil at the moment. This PhD program in Brazil grew in the last 20 years, grew too much, as I see, because we lost control of the quality in many cases. It became much more bureaucratic than it used to be. So it's dominated by bureaucracy, and it should be reviewed to bring quality of science in PhD programs. We at Fapesp can only partially control this. In which way? We only support a fellowship which has a good quality attested by 2 different referees, and so it is very competitive. But I think this should be a question of, say, a policy in the state, at least, if not in the country. The third question is, most of the science in Brazil is carried on, is produced in universities. And you know, the academic world has its own rules. It's an important place for basic science, for uncompromised science. Say you wish to research the origin of the universe. It's only in a university you can do a research like that. But the predominance of the research done in universities in certain way distorts the final result. For instance, we have in the state of São Paulo many research institutes. Most of them are linked to the state government. But I'd say they do not carry on their program very efficiently. Butantan is an example of a research institute linked to the state government. And I'd say it's the best example we have in Brazil, together with Fiocruz, which is also an independent research institute. These are 2 good examples. But we have many institutes here in the state of São Paulo which could be doing the same kind of innovative research in different areas of science, in technology, engineering, material sciences, and so on, and they do not respond adequately. So this is something for the government to try to change. Finally, when you look at science and technology that can be brought to society, as Marcelo was speaking, we need a cooperation between the academic world, companies, and government. And only if the 3 partners align what they wish, you cannot succeed. For instance, when you think of producing vaccines, so we have, I showed you 13 projects in vaccine which are being developed here in the state of São Paulo. Supposing one of them is successful in the first steps, so you need to do a clinical trial. How do you produce enough of the vaccine to do a trial, say, for 20,000 individuals? The university, the laboratory, the university laboratory will not produce this, no. So you need to come to Butantan and ask them to stop their production line and put a special line to produce 20,000 samples for a clinical trial. This is not possible. So you see, there is something missing in between.
Pilot plants.
Which we are supporting one, as I told you, in Botucatu. That's the first one that is being built here in the state of São Paulo. I don't know where else in Brazil. But, you know, this is okay, but you see, Butantan is a research institute, is a plant, and now it will, okay, you need to have more options. And this is only possible if you put government, academic world, and companies to talk and to decide on 1, 2, 3, 4, priority lines of actions. So, Michelle, I don't know if I answered you, but those are my thoughts about this.
Okay. More question? No?
No.
Doctor?
You cannot afford more. Okay. But then I wish to thank you for asking those questions. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for...
Okay. So thank you very much for staying until now. And before we adjourn this afternoon, I would just remind you all that tomorrow we start at 8:30 here at the same auditorium. We have a very busy schedule tomorrow. We start with the epidemiology of infectious diseases, then we have therapeutics, omics, and then we, at the end of the day, we're going to talk about vaccines. So it's going to be very exciting, as it was the two lectures we have today that we have a very vibrant discussion. So now I invite you all to go out and then upstairs. I hope there will be some people guiding us to get there to the tent upstairs for our reception. So thank you very much.